Hey, this is Michael Emery. Thanks for tuning into the Slow Baja. This podcast is powered by Tequila Fortaleza, handmade in small batches, and hands down, my favorite tequila. Slow Baja is brought to you by the Baja XL Rally. The Baja XL is the largest and longest amateur off-road rally on the Baja Peninsula. It's 10 epic days, LA to Cabo to LA. Check it out at bajaxl.org. Okay, I'm going to have a sip of Natasha's rum drink.
How's that sitting with you?
Lovely. All right, we're starting over. I'm delighted to be in Carpinteria, California with Christian Beamish, and we're in his garage. Garage doors open, side doors open. We are recording in crazy COVID times, but we're being safe. I have a mask on. Christian has a mask on. We're 10 feet away, and we're just going to jump into it. Christian Beamish, I'm delighted to be here. Take it away. Tell me how we're going to talk about your book.
Great.
Voyage of the Cormorant, published in 2012. Am I right on that?
Yes, yep. Patagonia Books, 2012.
Patagonia Books, and just released on Audible as an audiobook.
Yes.
Which is excellent, which you read.
I do indeed, yep.
That's got to be an interesting experience. All right, well, we're going to start with how you built the boat before we talk about how you made the audiobooks.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
Let's just jump into it. You did it.
Great.
You did it. People talk about building a boat. You actually did it. So tell me about how that came about, where you were in your life, if you'd had any experience building things before, and tell me a little bit about your childhood.
Sure. Well, I grew up in Newport Beach, which is a very boaty place, and in fact has quite a history of boat building, it turns out. None of which I was, except sort of glancingly, I wasn't really attached to the boat building history or much of the boating life. I mean, you can't really grow up in Newport Beach without being thrown into a Sabot or a Laser at some point, both of which I was, and sailed on friends' families' boats and stuff. But it wasn't really a big part of my life. Surfing was my big thing. My dad is, well, he passed away. Bob Beamish was a Newport guy, great skier and body surfer and former LA County lifeguard in the 1950s. And so he's of that kind of that golden generation, that golden era, I should say, pioneer generation of, the Mickey Munoz and the Enu Grubby, just kind of the list goes on. Peter Cole, Buzzy Trent, the guys who sort of started figuring out Hawaii, not to, of course, by befriending and getting to know the Hawaiian surfers as well, which is very important. And Hawaii is such a magnificent place. But I digress.
As I said, we're all digressions here. It's all sidetrack on Slow Baja, so feel free.
As my friend Kurt Putnam says, the beige martini for the Tecate is, anyway, so, fast forward, mid-30s, a hitch in the Navy Seabees behind me and a graduate writing program ahead of me. I landed at Pigeon Point Lighthouse, got a handyman gig so I could live there and be close to San Francisco State, but still sort of surfing. And it's this amazing stretch of coastline, rocky and forbidding and beautiful. And that's where the germ of this idea, the seed of this idea really sprouted, was at Pigeon Point. And historically, the coastal schooners would run up and down the coast and they would stop in there, and there would be small boats and whalers that would run and work out of this cove on the south side of the point at Pigeon Point. So all that sort of maritime history kind of got into my blood. But you're right, Michael, I didn't grow up, with a shop full of tools by any means. We built some, slapped together some plywood for skateboard ramps and things, but I was in no way really a builder, except, of course, that I did do a hitch with the Navy Seabees. And I did know how to, the Seabees are the construction arm of the United States Navy, and there I learned how to read plans. I was a steel worker, so I learned welding and things. But you know,
Which serves you well with a wooden boat.
yeah, right. But you know, once you learn the general concepts of how things work, and you know, on a job site, you know, deployed in Saudi Arabia, say, it's not a strict delineation. If a form needs to be knocked together to pour concrete, and you happen to be there, but you're a steel worker, you don't, you grab a hammer and knock the form together. So I knew how to work, and I knew how to build from being with the Seabees, and I had also started shaping surfboards, which is not the same. You take a block of foam that already has the rocker in it, and it's all about controlling your dimensions and controlling the tools. But still, I suppose in the notion of curves and how the interplay of craft and water flow and things like that, all of these are kind of threads in the construction of a boat, or at least in my experience.
I'm going to stop you right there
Yeah,
because
please.
I can see it in your eyes, and of course I've read your book, and I know that your father's family descends from Ireland,
Yes.
and I'm seeing right now just a little bit of an Irish poet in you. Yeah, I'm going to build a boat. Now you joined the Navy right out of high school because your parents were basically worried about you becoming a stoner surfer hanging out in Newport, right?
Yeah.
And becoming less than zero at Newport with a lot of other kids on
And
trust funds and
that
such.
was an occupational hazard amongst teenagers of the middle class of Newport Beach, unfortunately. And I have a few of my friends who went down that powdery
Right.
way.
So you got away. You joined the Seabees, and you managed to get out of that experience. And I think it was Gulf War era, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So you got out of that experience, and then decided that college and graduate school and literature would be your field of study, which leads naturally to boat building.
Of course. Can't you see it?
So
But do you
tell us how you
I
got to that.
listen, I would say the whole thing is in fact of a piece. I suppose I am unorthodox, but it's always a yearning for purer, more pure line, that a certain way of being and certainly experience, a way of being in the world. And so I joined the Navy thinking of Ernest Hemingway and Jack Kerouac, and I
Right.
joined the Navy hoping that I would be on a frigate with a pea coat on watch late at night drinking coffee from a tin cup. Like, I just thought it kind of had that like United States Navy war in the Pacific sort of thing, and I was desperate for that. Coming up in 1980s Newport Beach, which was trying so desperately to be in the future, and do away with anything before. And the houses were quickly being bought up, and the little cottages knocked down, and McMansions thrown up in their place. And I think if I didn't have an intellectual sense of what was happening, I certainly had a visceral sense. And in my naive way, I thought the United States Navy would at least be real. At least that's tradition. That's no, you're not posturing. You are what you either make it or you don't. You can or you cannot. So in that way, Navy. Now, how do you then make the leap to studying literature and creative writing? Well, I've always been a reader, and I read a lot in the Navy, and my mother's scholarly and academic and artistic as well, and so it was important to me. It was
It's
a
in your
value of
DNA.
mine.
It was in your DNA.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yes.
Gentleman surfer and scholar.
I hope so. Yeah,
That's what I'm
I at
that's what
least
I'm gleaning here.
aspire. You know,
Okay.
I'm probably like I'm. There's a thing I read something, and I came across a literary journal. You know, very critical of the sort of the aspirations of the middle class, and how in England, but I think it's just the same in America, you know, how they would have the right books on the shelf, you know, even if they never read them, it just, you know, to have the appearance. And I know I'm guilty of that. Like I want, you know, I want to be more than frankly, the suburban dumbass that I am, you know? And you know, I'm all right. I've done a few things. I'm cool. It's good. I don't mean to be so like hard on myself. I suppose I'm trying to be deprecating, you know, self-deprecating. But you know, there's this ickiness somehow of American culture. I love the United States and I love American culture, but God damn it, if you'll excuse my language, the hyper commercialism, the trophy way, the gross excess. It's so the antithesis of the people down in Baja. And now we can romanticize, see, out of our excess in America, we can romanticize the cool people down in Baja. They're not trying to be cool, they're trying to survive, right? And so they don't have the luxury to have this sort of evaluation of the way they would like to live. That's the way they live. And it's refreshing to us because we're in a miasma, if I'm even using that word correctly, of, you know, aspiration versus appearance versus impressions. It's a tight little web, you know, and maybe it's even particular to white people.
Well, we're getting off on an interesting jag here right away. I was going to ask you how you got to San Clemente to work for Surfer's Journal and build that boat. But, you know, you brought something up really, I think, beautiful and important, how I romanticize the lives of the folks in Baja, the folks that
Yes.
you came into their lives intimately, quietly, with your boat, maybe crashing on the beach or having them help you in a situation, get you out of a situation.
Yeah, more than once, definitely.
But we'll circle around to how you built the boat.
Sure.
But let's jump right into the kindness of strangers in Baja, folks that you met that have, in comparison to your life, to my life, to our lives, and to our neighbors' lives here, so much less material goods.
Yes.
But they have the luxury of time, and they have this bond of, well, I was in need last time, you're in need this time, I'm helping you, you helped me, we're helping together, collectively we're helping each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was your takeaway from all the people in all the places that had a cup of coffee for you, a bowl of beans, a tow, a help, a ride into town, take your car, move it down the 100 miles down the coast and leave it there and wash it. We've got guests. Here we are on the slow Baja. Christian's daughter's come in to say hello.
Here's Josephine.
Freezing. You want to say hello, or
we're live. We are recording.
We're recording. Say hello.
Hi.
Okay. Well, let me get on with it, sweetheart. I'm glad you came out. Why don't you go inside? Okay.
It's all very real.
Yeah, we're
and
it's a different phase of life than sleeping under the canvas on forgotten shores in Baja. But what you were saying, Michael, about I suppose the nature of the way in Baja, I guess it has to do again with circumstances. I think in the remote quarters, they're still kind of living a vaquero, life. Like they live on there's the ejido system, right? Of ranches, and there are, you know, uh, connect connections of relations between ranches in certain zones, and you're not alone. You think you're out in the middle of nowhere, but if you blow a tire or whatever and you sit there long enough, someone will come by. Generally, I mean, I suppose people do get lost, but the land has eyes, right? People see who's moving through their territory. It's not as wide. I mean, it is wide open, but
well, all dirt roads lead somewhere in Baja.
yes, yeah. There's a reason they're there, right?
Right.
And so, as I think it's, in my experience, there's a graciousness to Mexican culture in general, that is just lovely. It's just, there's I don't know, a generosity of spirit and a tendency to have fun, and that makes Baja with its natural splendor, is such a wonderful place to be. And obviously, maybe here I go idealizing Mexican people. I don't want to. I mean, I live my life in a kind of continual cultural critique, which is not always the happiest place to be. And I don't know that I'm right. I'm not necessarily right, in these like statements that I'm throwing down about quote unquote white people. But I want to also be careful not to make broad statements about quote unquote Mexican people, right? But we were just talking about, if you spend any time down in Baja, you've come across really friendly, wonderful people. And that's not to, sort of make the snow globe of the nice little Mexican people waiting for you to have your Baja vacation. They're people with their own concerns, and, and as we know, that's, I guess, what I was alluding to. As we know, life in Mexico is not always, one margarita after the next. Well, it can be, but in other words, there can be real troubles.
Yeah, and I think that the point that you made in your book is, when you had a need, you found a solution, often with the help of a local fisherman, a local, person out in the middle of nowhere, honestly, who is happy to give you what little they had to help you.
Yes, indeed. And there is no one like a rancher in Baja California to fix a car, or, to figure out how to keep things going. That's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when I bought my my 1971 Toyota Land Cruiser and was making my first Baja trip back in 2012, noted Land Cruiser specialist, we were fixing this, we were fixing that, and as we were modifying the truck, he said, "Well, how far are you going, and how deep are you going, and what things,
Yeah.
what are we going to do on this?" And I said, "Let me tell you, wherever I'm going, the local farmer's going to come by me in a Datsun B210 on,
Yeah.
on 3 bald tires with the rear hatch taken off, and he's using it as a pickup truck, and it's going to be down on 1 cylinder." So
Yeah.
those are the dirt roads that I'm going to be on. So if I have 4-wheel drive and I'm in 4-wheel drive, it's because I'm scared, not because I need it.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
all right, so we're going to circle back around to how a guy who freshly graduated from San Francisco State in a literature program, graduate school literature, decides that he's editing at Surfer's Journal. He's got an actual job in literature. Surfer's Journal, I'm saying, not
Yes.
not journalism. That's literature in my book.
Yeah.
As good
We try.
as good as it gets if you're a surfer.
Yeah. That's true.
And
Definitely.
so you have a job there. You're living in San Clemente, and you decide that you're going to build a dang boat.
Well, it was sort of now was the time, or that was the time, I should say. I had been up at Pigeon Point, got
The
the
idea.
the thunderstruck idea, and then got the studio with the garage, which I immediately, the landlord, as an afterthought, I was like, oh, okay, I can kip out here. I can live. There's the stove, whatever. This will work. Down by the beach. And he said, "Oh yeah," as an afterthought. This garage comes with it, and comes around and clatters the keys, jangles the keys, and opens the garage. And it was like rays of light. That's the boat shop, and I saw it all come together. It was perfect. I did have to knock a hole in the wall into the kitchen to make room for the stern section of the boat, but nothing that a little drywall, thank you United States Navy Seabees, and spackle couldn't
I
put
don't
right.
know if you can see me smiling under my mask, here, but I'm grinning ear to ear.
You got to make it work,
Yeah. And so the plans, was that like a downloaded thing? So you're building the plans off of this fellow who builds these boats in the Isle of Skye in Scotland. It's pretty romantic.
Yes.
You're drinking like a fish at this stage, or had you quit drinking by then?
Yeah. No.
You did. You did
Yeah,
note
I
in
guess
your
I
book that
suppose
you
I
had
mentioned
some.
it in the book. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've had my little wrestles with alcohol.
But
And
you're building. You're not drinking. This is an endeavor.
actually, I think in the midst of the building, I began to taper off the drinking because as fond as I am of my beers, I like my fingers even better. So
Right.
skill saw, fingers, bad combination, and I'm not such a lush that I can't.
And I'm going to report
keep the beers for later.
For those who aren't able to see Christian in front of me, he has all of his fingers and both thumbs.
Yes, I intend to keep them.
All right, so you're in San Clemente. You've got a day job, and you're building this boat at night, on the weekends, both.
Night and weekends, and it was funny.
Are you obsessed? Is it crazy?
Pretty well, like the best obsessions, it didn't feel like an obsession. There's no problem. I don't have a problem.
I'm
No
building a
problem
boat.
here.
Damn it!
Yeah, I want to build a boat.
Queequeg.
And it was funny, I guess it was just a time of life thing. I'm pretty sociable. I like company, but I don't know. I mean, I guess I am also the guy who sailed off for, 3 months by himself.
Yeah, you're comfortable with solitude.
I'm cool. I like my own company. So, my point is that, I wasn't fighting against anything. If anything, I was hungry for the time to spend on building the boat. It really is such a wonderful process, and especially if you build one. I mean, 18 feet, an 18-foot open boat is a small boat, but it's big enough as the planks, and especially once the hull, you finish the hull, you're not quite even halfway, that's a huge step. But with the hull finished, you can really kind of begin to dream, you see the run of the planks and the shape of the hull, and it's something that's, going to take you someplace, and it's clear that it can. I suppose I had seen the possibility or registered the possibility of the boat just based on the photograph. But then, as I mentioned, once the hull came into existence, it really, there was just something, obviously, that's what I was trying to express. An 18-foot boat is always only going to be 18 feet. But there was something in the nature of the curve of the hull that gave it substance. I could see, and it's not exactly a one-to-one thing with surfboards, but but it's a lot like this. Every now and then you see a surfboard under someone's arm and you go, oh, I like that outline. I just like what that suggests. And that's what it was with Cormorant. And that's that vision. It's just strengthening. At first I thought, oh, this would be something fun to have up and down the California coast, day sail, or maybe, sail into the, remote stretches of coast to go surfing. And little by little, building on that, I started realizing, no, maybe this is longer range, in fact, than than you might think at first glance for an 18
As
foot boat.
as nutty as that sounds.
It's not as it's kind of like, I guess the frog doesn't feel the water boiling. You kind of, little by little.
But people in another era used the tools that they had to explore.
Yes.
1920s, 1930s, people drove great distances in these, rickety little cars. People in those times of the 18th, 19th, 20th centuries had their little double-end workboats and went out.
In fact, another thing that motivated me for this was the boat that I built, the Cormorant, is called a Shetland Isle beach boat. And as the name suggests, it's a boat that can both land and be launched off the beach. And traditionally, the Shetland Islanders would use that boat to fish banks 40 miles offshore. And so there would be two men, and they would go out and they would fish all night and sail back.
Sail and
they did
oar.
it for hundreds of years. Sail and oar.
And oar, just like you.
Yes. Well, me just like them.
Just like them,
so
exactly.
my thought process in choosing the boat was, well, if it's good enough for the North Atlantic, then it can handle the Pacific. Not that the Pacific's no slouch either, but the North Atlantic is as wild and woolly as any place in the world, right? So I'm really interested also in like the lineage of the Shetland Isle beach boat, as a matter of fact, goes directly to the Vikings. And in fact, they would have boat builders from Norway. As the crow flies, it's not that far, would cross the North Sea, or I guess whatever sea that is, across to the Shetland Isles, and you could hire a builder who would come with the timbers from Norway and build the boats, because there wasn't the forestry on the Shetland Isles that you would need for a boat building industry. Yeah.
And so when did sailing it to Baja become the goal?
After I realized that it was feasible to camp and fish and surf and navigate.
And you had tested this out to the Channel Islands and locally out of Southern California, out of San Clemente.
Yeah, in basically what we call the Southern California Bight, from Point Conception to the border. And I guess I was looking for that, those remote stretches of coast that are down there that are less so here.
And surf.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's a natural.
Yeah, which is in abundance here, but also there.
Did you ever look into the sailing part of it? Did you ever just think, was that just an afterthought? Like, of course you're going to be able to sail, but were you thinking like, okay, the weather's going to be better, the surf's going to be good, the water's not going to be cold, but then you never really figured out like, oh, the sailing's going to be hard and terrible.
I counted on the sailing being manageable because our trade winds here are the northwesterlies.
Here at Slow Baja, we can't wait to drive our old Land Cruiser south of the border. And when we go, we'll be going with Baja Bound Insurance. Their website's fast and easy to use. Check them out at bajabound.com. That's bajabound.com, serving Mexico travelers since 1994. Hey, Baja tourism is picking up, and our friends at the Animal Pad and Tap Act want to remind you when you're crossing the border, just say no to puppy peddlers. I know they're cute, but the sooner we can end the demand, we can end the supply. For more information, check out theanimalpad.org and Tap Act on Instagram and Facebook. We're jumping right back into it. We've taken a quick break. I'm back with Christian Beamish. I'm in his garage. We're bundled up and we've got masks on. We're sitting 10 feet apart from each other in these crazy COVID times in Carpinteria, California, to get the full alliteration. And Christian was just telling me about getting on to the idea of this little boat that was built in your humble garage is
Yeah,
going to go
the
to
possibilities of it,
Baja.
right?
And just to recap, about 2 years to build it, a couple years to figure out how to sail it,
Yeah.
and then do we want to jump right into the change of the economy? You're trying to figure out how to tell your boss that, hey, I'm going to take off on this great trip and I don't want to leave you in the lurch. And your boss takes you out to lunch and says, hey, we're eliminating your position.
Yeah, so
So was that a
that's it
relief?
in a
Was
nutshell.
that a relief? Was it a problem? I
Um,
mean, I know.
I said it. I said to Pesman, we all call him Pez. Steve Pesman is a
Surfer's
patron
Journal.
saint of surfing.
Yeah.
Certainly, Southern California surfing. He's such a great man, and I learned a lot. I have learned a lot from him, and yeah. So so I was in my kind of roundabout way. Steve, I don't want to leave the thing, but the company in the lurch, but I want to go do this mission, and I'm trying to explain I can do work ahead of time, and he says stop, we got to eliminate the position because the economy's coming down, coming apart. It's 2008. He sees the writing on the wall, and glib, I just said, well, that makes it. I said, that's convenient, isn't it? I honestly, that's just kind of make the best of it. It was a little daunting, but I had indeed already made my decision, as unorthodox as it was. But then again, I'm the guy, who decides to get a creative writing degree and build a boat and do this anyway. So that's kind of those are the dice I'm rolling, if that makes any sense. I don't know.
Right.
Those are the cards. I don't know. That's my cards. I'm playing them,
And so it made it easy for you to, put the boat on the trailer, head down to San Diego.
Yeah.
And you launched it.
And splash it on, the night on New Year's Eve.
That's just so
December 31st.
Such great timing.
December 31st, 2008. And I stayed on the anchor at Point Loma there, just outside the entrance of the harbor, watched the fireworks over San Diego, and it's crashed out under the boat tent, and I was off the next day.
I think what struck me is just the folly of these things. When you made a reference, and I'm sorry I didn't make a note or have it to read aloud here, but basically, you're 3 nights in and you realize, oh, this would have been like a 35-minute drive from the border.
Yeah, right.
You know, and here you are, three nights under sail, and
Yeah, I didn't have. I mean, I did note that, and I note that in the book, right? That I was aware of it, but it wasn't. It wasn't. I don't know. It wasn't the the horse trying to beat the automobile or whatever. I'm keeping up with 21st century life, even though I'm in a 18th century technology. It's just as good. That wasn't the point. The point was to go take it as it comes and go with it, or and sometimes going with it means going backwards or not going at all, or
and so there was a lot of that. You purposely went without a watch, which is I think interesting. So we're starting with I don't care what time it is. I'm in the now. You're in the now all the time, whether you want to be or not.
Right.
And you've got oars. That's your mode of transportation. That's your power if it's not blowing.
Yeah.
And
but a note on the oars, though. It's not like if my intention was to say get somewhere 20 miles down the coast and the winds weren't favorable, it's not like I was gonna put the knife in my teeth and just row there. Damn it, anyway. I just if it wasn't gonna work, it wasn't gonna work.
Rowing gets you onto the beach or gets you a mile.
Moving across the anchorage or whatever.
I get it.
Although, as you did read in the book, a couple of times I would be well out to sea and the wind fell away and I still had 15 miles or whatever to go to Isla San Martin, and I had ample opportunity to explore my rowing stroke for some 7 hours or so.
Yeah, so I was going to get to, how long did it take you to just take a deep breath and realize, Like, wait for the tide to change, wait for the wind to come back, not get the oars in the locks and say, God damn it, I'm going to row it. And then
Yeah.
realize how futile that is. Was
Well,
that a week into the trip? Was that,
uh,
you know,
I don't think, Michael, there was probably, it wasn't such it wasn't, maybe a cut and dried sort of realization. I, I spent those 2 years, arguably it's like surfing. I'm still learning how to sail that boat. And just what's appropriate and it really comes down to the scale of the vessel, in the midst of the water at hand. And so, yeah, sometimes indeed, sailing back from the Channel Islands, I was coming back, I guess, not this fall, but the fall before, and there's a line of oil derricks 3 miles off the coast here, and then I think it's maybe 4 miles past those is one other oil derrick, so that's 7 miles offshore. The wind died on me about 5 miles past further out than that outermost one. So do the math, 12 miles offshore, a little more than halfway across the channel. It just went mill pond, just sheet glass. And I'm adrift out there. But as I had done in Baja, getting to San Martin, I knew I was 10 miles off San Martin. I knew I was 12 miles from home. And so you're not going to go row really fast. But I mean, you could walk to Washington, D.C. You could walk to San Francisco. It'll take you a month or
Right.
whatever, but you can proceed in your desired direction. And when it comes to rowing, it's not much more difficult than riding a bike that's kitted out for bicycle travel, with your panniers and things. It's about using your upper body weight, and I'm pantomiming here, and kind of falling back on the oars, and you do the finishing stroke, you do this sort of Jack LaLanne, pull through, and then put the oars in, but you can get into the nicest rhythm in which your mind is free to think, and you breathe and row, and you breathe and row. And in that moment, in that Channel Islands crossing, in that Santa Barbara Channel crossing, when you're 12 miles offshore on a sheet glass, beaming, sunny day, the water, just the shafts of light just disappear. It's bottomless. And I knew I had a golden opportunity, so I stripped my clothes off and I dove straight off the boat. The boat wasn't going anywhere. It was just a pond. And I dove in and then took 3 big, long gliding strokes straight down underwater, and then turned around in that big open blue channel water and saw my little boat way up. They opened my eyes and saw the little boat way up there on the surface, and then slowly swam back up. And then, well, what do you know? You're invigorated by that cold, clean salt water, the bright sun. You put your boardies on and get to rowing, and it's cool. It's just, it's about getting your mind right for
Right,
it.
right.
Know?
So let's take us down the coast of Baja, bring us through some of the highlights, the lowlights, the scary bits, the boring bits, the people you met, and the impressions they made on you, and let's wrap this up.
Yeah.
In the next 10 minutes.
People are great. Business is fantastic. Couldn't be better. Which is kind of like, if you've got 12 knots of northwesterly wind and a good fishing kit and enough water, and a boat that you're comfortable with, life's pretty good on the Pacific coast of Baja California. Of course, come sunset, that 12 knots of wind can quickly dissipate and you can get a moment of stillness before it comes roaring off the desert at 40 knots to drive you in the general direction of Tahiti with nothing in between. And horrifying short, steep ocean swells. Fortunately, that Shetland Isle beach boat is it's a double ender, and it's kind of pulled in at the stern, and it can run with some seas. And I have indeed had to run through the night ahead of those winds. And you know, I never felt like I was going to die on
I mean,
this trip.
let's take that in for a second. That's not hyperbole.
No, especially in retrospect.
I'm like really sitting here with you saying, "Oh, he's just kidding," but you're not kidding, and that's part of what happens when you take on something like this. You're not in the 30-foot sailboat that you picked up cheap in Southern California and sailing it down. It's the perfect vessel for this, plastic fantastic. You're in a 18-foot vessel that you made.
Yeah.
Sailing in open seas without, electronic navigation, without being able to just set your rudder and button up the hatches and let it ride it out.
Yeah. No, you definitely have to be engaged. You have to pilot the thing.
You're actively involved in every minute of every day.
Yeah. Do you know what I did, though? As possibly foolhardy as this whole undertaking might appear, and maybe actually it is, I did not do so without, first of all, without a plan. Secondly, without some layers of safety, and that I really thought through, and I worked my way from what I call the worst case scenario back. And I don't have a good answer for the worst case scenario, but I'll get to that in a moment.
Yeah, well, you're not an idiot, and you when maybe somebody thought, is this your way of trying to go out gallantly, you were pretty blunt to say no.
Yeah, no. I am not interested. I mean, I did not have a family or a wife at the time. But the fact that I do now and still consider it a good time to sail alone in this same boat out to the Channel Islands, where you can very well drown. Quite possibly. There's horrendous water. There's potato patch zones out on the islands, and tide, current, and swell
large vessels
get the best.
Yeah,
can get the best of one. But what I did for this Baja voyage was, first of all, I built in buoyancy in the boat. So in the event of a capsize, it's not just going to be swamped to the gunnels. I would have the possibility of, once I righted the boat, and I have tested the boat and capsized it. I only ever capsized once in all the sailing. When I was learning how to sail it, I had the dagger board in running downwind, and learned the lesson that when you run downwind, you take the dagger board out, because if you don't, you can broach. You turn, if you turn basically before the wind, you trip over that center fin, the dagger board, and it knocked the boat over. And so I learned two things. You've got to, have the dagger board up and out of the water running downwind. And secondly, I learned I needed more buoyancy. So I added buoyancy as a result of that, and then took it back down to the harbor, capsized it, and saw that indeed I did have enough that I could bail it out. Secondly, I always wear a life jacket. Always. In the harbor rowing, I wear a life jacket. My thinking on that being, well, it's just, that's, if you're a sailor, you know that you wear a life jacket, because if you go over, it's not like, oh, I slipped and fell in the water. If something dramatic enough happens that sends the sailor into the water, he's just as likely to hit his head on the way over, and so then you're in the water face down or whatever. At least in the life jacket, you're gonna, your knocked out body is gonna be floating around. Someone can grab you. Thirdly, I wore a lifeline. I kept myself tied to the boat. And then I mentioned the worst case scenario that I don't have a good answer for is, it's a cold ocean off this coast, right? Even this summer, it's not Hawaii. You would succumb to hypothermia within a couple of hours, even in the summer, even probably, or go hypothermic, and then you're in no position to help yourself. So what do you do when you're in challenging conditions? Do you just anticipate that you're going to go over and wear your wetsuit, and then you're sailing in a wetsuit, and you just, like, you're surfing and you got to pee, but that's not comfortable, and you're going to be sailing for 10 hours, or, so I didn't like to wear a wetsuit. So the compromise was I would just head to toe in layers of wool under foul weather gear and my jackets, and so my thinking, well, if I do capsize at night in the winter in this frigid sea, at least I'll have a wool sweater, wool long underwear, wool trousers. I might still get hypothermia,
Right.
because it's just not realistic to wear a wetsuit.
Right. And that was part of your writing about your plan. You were going to wear a wetsuit, which I thought, I didn't like wearing a wetsuit when I surfed.
Yeah, right.
But
right.
So let's get on to, Christian, I hate to put in fast forward here, but let's get on to some of the highlights and some of the lowlights and the solitude and the joyous moments.
Yeah, I was just thinking about
you met some interesting folks. You ran into pro surfers that you knew.
Yeah,
I mean, what a crazy thing that is.
Yeah, the Long brothers. I ran into them, and we surfed a magical set of reefs that they know of. And golly, we got into some really, really good waves, like the kind of stuff that you would travel for, and I happened to travel in this 18th century mode. So that was a real highlight.
How about Aurelio?
Meeting my friend Aurelio. He's such a gentleman, such a good man. And Caterino Burges and his family on Isla Cedros. His daughter Paula and her husband Diego were still friends. Our children are friends. And we've been back to visit them on Cedros. They took me in on Cedros. If you read the book, there's a story there. There's a story there. I end up with them, and very much in their good graces, and eternally in their debt, as a matter of fact. So yeah, I'd say Isla Cedros was a highlight, and just those moments of pristine conditions. I love that sun on the water, the sparkle factor, my wife and I call it, and it's sort of the wind in the willows, being on a boat, messing about is simply messing about in boats. It's just a lovely darn thing to have some time on the water in quietude.
And you were reading some beautiful literature fitting of the period of the vessel that you were traveling.
My man Walt Whitman.
Right? Leaves of Grass.
Yeah.
And who else were you reading? And how did you keep your mind occupied? I mean, today we're on our phones all the time, screens, what have you. You're singing to yourself out there.
Yeah.
Reading aloud.
A bit, yes. The phones. I've got my face in the damn thing, just like everybody else. The phones are so new that when you get back into the old ways, they really don't matter. It's not like, oh, I wish I had my phone, when you're, we are formed as I attempt to explore in my boat. We are formed, aren't we? These contemporary bodies that we inhabit in this moment, in this 21st century moment. These bodies are ancient. And they are formed by this magnificent planet. And the moments in which we can give ourselves time to simply be on the planet on its terms, we find that in fact they're our terms. We're built for this. And so I could. I don't like to be cold, so as long as I'm warm and have something interesting to look at and a beach to walk on or a trail to stroll or whatever the equivalent, I think it's all just great. I don't need anything.
Did you know? Did you know that the voyage was over when it was ending? I mean, was it clear to you like this is I've done it,
Uh
or did you just think, where am I going next? How much further can I go?
you know, as you know, the voyage that I depict in the book, The Voyage of the Cormorant, is
What's the title of the book? Let's say it one more time here, Christian.
Voyage of the Cormorant. The Voyage of the Cormorant.
Patagonia Press.
Yes.
2012. There's still books available from
Yeah,
Patagonia on their website. It's available where you buy better books, all
Yes.
those online places, and on Audible. I downloaded it this morning and listened to it on the drive down here.
Oh, right. Hey, how was it? So I'm going to put you on the spot. You know, you have to say it was wonderful, but how was it? How was the
Listen,
experience
I
of
mean,
hearing
after you told me that that it just released on Audible.
Yeah.
I just downloaded Audible because I'm not listening to books on tape, so to speak, unless I was getting them from my local library. So
Sure.
I'm listening to podcasts all the time, but I hadn't gone down this path of audio books since I was physically sticking in a CD or a cassette tape into my car. And so listening to it down on the drive down here, I got 4 solid hours of you today. It was great.
Wow, that's a lot of being.
It's great. No, I mean it's beautifully done and it's beautiful. I'm delighted. I'm going to listen to it all the way to San Diego and all the way back.
Awesome. Okay.
So I've read it, and
Thank
I've
you.
listened to it, and it's beautiful both ways. You do a beautiful job.
I appreciate it.
And I'm not just saying that to flatter you, and I hope that folks really who love a great story. This is a terrific story. This is a terrific story. I'm delighted that I'm here because it involves Baja, which is why I'm here. But it's a delightful story under any circumstances.
You know, I guess I would just say this. You said, did I know that the voyage was over? And then I started to say this Voyage of the Cormorant. I'm at work on another volume, and this could very well be titled Voyages of the Cormorant. You know, if Voyage of the Cormorant is volume 1, as it is, I've got a working title that's not that. But yeah, there's lots of, I've been on lots of trips. I've been back down to Baja since then, trailering. I've been numerous times to our Channel Islands out front here. I've been to Vancouver Island. And there's lots of other places I would be very interested to explore. My great granny came over from Denmark and ended up in Antioch, California in 18 something. And I want to go check out the Delta. I think that would be could be very interesting. But yeah, man, a boat is a pain in the neck, but it's such a great thing to have, you know?
Well, you're probably saving on mooring fees. This isn't like you're not mooring a yacht in Newport with the Cormorant.
Yes, that's it.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap it up here. You've been super generous, Christian. Where is the best way for people? Where can people find you on the internet? Where's the best way for people to find out about what you're up to? You're shaping surfboards for a living. You've got that going on.
Yes.
If people want to read about your life, christianbeamish.com.
There is such a thing.
Take me through all your interactions with the public.
Yes, indeed. christianbeamish.com. It's, you know, I'm sure most people say this, or people who have it together don't say it, but if you're anything like me, you know, the website could probably use a little updating, but it's there. There's some things, you know, I've got some articles, and I think it gives a snapshot of, you know, the who and the what. I sure appreciate Patagonia, golly, for, you know, gearing me up for the trip and publishing this beautiful book. And also Penguin Random House bought the audio rights and were such a pleasure to work with and hosted me beautifully to do the reading. We set up a studio over in Ojai and got it done.
What a treat that, I mean, your book came out in 2012. So
I know,
hardcover, soft cover, and 8 years later,
Yeah.
on audio. So I'm just saying again, like I just.
Well, I got to call into Brad Pitt for
Yeah,
the
he's
movie.
gonna do the
version.
movie, exactly.
Yeah.
I think
I think Brad could really do a great Christian Beamish.
for people who aren't sitting here, he's there's a striking resemblance.
You're too generous.
All right, so
That's funny.
christianbeamish.com. The book's still on Patagonia because I bought 2 hardcover first editions the other day.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
going to give one as a gift and one for myself. And obviously, you can be found on all those other sites.
Yes,
And-
I'm big on Instagram, but you can see all the various surfboards I do. But the surfboards it's all the same stuff. It really is. It's as I was working the other day shaping, I have such a strong feeling that of my life, all these seemingly disparate parts of my life are indeed aren't they all for all of us, but the parts of a life, and they do fit together, and the one informs the other. The writing and the surfing, the boats and the surfboards, the going and even the staying, it's all in there.
Well, you've got some beautiful reasons. The 2 children that I saw, Natasha makes a lovely rum cocktail. You have,
Yes, she
you have a
does.
beautiful home here in Carpinteria, so I get why you're here, but I hope for my own selfish sake, there's another book coming soon.
Thank you. Yeah, we're it's in the works.
All right, well, we'll leave it there. Thanks again.
All right, my pleasure. Thank you.
Hey, you guys know what to do. Please help us by subscribing, sharing, rating, all that stuff. And if you missed anything, you can find the links in the show notes at slowbaja.com. I'll be back before you know it. And if you want to receive notices on new episodes, please follow Slow Baja on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook for you old folks.